Hey, listeners. My name is Elisha, the founder of the Witnesses podcast. It's so beautiful to have you listening to our podcast. And I want you to know something that means a whole lot to me. Thank you for tuning in. And one thing I love to tell all of our listeners is it's not just about you listening, but listening to understand. Understanding is the most important thing. So important. So, you have to listen, learn, and practice. Thank you so very much and happy listening.
Hi, John. It's so nice to have you on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, Alicia. How about
That's
you?
I'm doing fine as well. That's so good. Um, you know, Oftentimes, John, I love to talk about the essence of this show, which is to invite
Right.
amazing guests like John to come talk to us about their triumphant stories. Because we believe that in our audience, there might be some people who are stuck up in a situation that John came out of triumphantly. So might those people getting to listen to you speak, they might actually pick some information from the words you're going to be saying here today that might probably lead to their transformation. So that's how I believe. So it is all about causing transformation in the lives of the audience. Transformation, transformation. Okay, John, the challenges that you faced and how you overcame them. And afterwards, I've got some beautiful questions for you. Okay, John, over to you.
Okay, Alicia. Again, thanks for having me on your show. The something interesting about me is that I was born in 1940 in northeastern Holland, and as we all know, and your guests will know from around the world, that was at the beginning of the war. My birthday was November the 1st, 1940, and the Germany invaded Holland in the Blitzkrieg in May of 1940. We had a small family. I have one sister 1 year older, one brother 2 years older, and a young parents. They were just married a couple of years before and were starting their lives, and everything was fine. And then everything changed because it became war. And my dad was then uh, uh, called into the Dutch army, and for the last time they heard from him was in the bombing of Rotterdam, where thousands of people died. And for the next 5 years, my family would not know if he was dead or alive. For my mom, a challenge. She was pregnant with me, obviously, until November. And then I was born, and then my sister, 1 year old, brother 2 years older. So things were then started to become altogether different. And I always say to when I give presentations that especially now when the world is in turmoil, if you look in in the Ukraine and then in the Middle East and in other places, is that war is terrible. There are no beneficiaries ever, in my opinion, and that for those people that think, and this, I said it respectfully, that the war is over, then everything goes back to normal. It simply doesn't. It may take, in fact, generations before there is any sense of normality. So for my mom, with three little kids, and obviously lots of people that they know, but everybody had the same issues and the same problem. It was all about survival. The first thing that I remember is hundreds of planes overhead when the Allied forces started bombing, the Germany and their production machine of equipment for to carry on the war, and they would come close to the area where I lived in northeastern Holland, and I still remember looking outside. The sound of hundreds of bombers is a sound that you will never forget. My mom would take us as kids outside on the deck behind our house, not to just look at look at the war, at the planes, but it was safer to be outside than inside. And we were living about 10 minutes from the German border, and in the distance, we could see the sky was red, and the cities were being bombed, and that went on since the middle of 1943, and so the other part that I remember is that the was the hunger winter in of 1944, 1945, and it was the coldest winter on record for Holland. And then the other part is there was no food. The Germans had cut off all the food, the flow of food, and again, thousands and thousands of kids and vulnerable older people died because of lack of food and the cold. And so I still remember, even now, I can still feel the feeling of hunger. Nearly 78 years later, I'm 83, going on 84. I was only 4 or 5 years old. I can still feel the feeling of hunger and the feeling of cold. And then the other part is the feeling of anxiety of the parent that, and the fear of losing that only one parent that protected us. And so it was a difficult time. And so what we used to do as kids, every morning we would go with gunny sacks into the railroad yards and pick up anything edible and burnable. And the reason that we did as kids, because the Germans would kick us in the butt but not shoot us, and we be just back the following day. And so those are some of the things that I still remember today. And then the other part, Alicia, was that we were liberated by the Canadian Army when the Allied forces landed mid 1944 in Normandy. They pushed their way through, the Belgium and then the west part of Holland, and and then we were in the extreme northeastern part, so things were getting pretty tough there as they pushed the Germans back into Germany. And I still remember being liberated by the Canadian Army, April the 12th, 1945, and it left such an impression on me that I, from that point forward, always knew that at some point I would go to the land of my heroes, Canada, and live there, and so that always stayed with me. And it took me till I was 23 when I did emigrate to Canada, and in particular to Western Canada, the province of British Columbia, and that's where I still am today, 60 years later. And but the war years is always something that stays with me, and I'm a fairly frequent speaker, and and talking to young people and others that not have been exposed to war, that it is something that leaves marks behind on a lot of people. Like even for myself, PTSD was part of my life, still is part of it, and then the other part was the inner child, and the inner child is that deep down feeling of the little boy that in the fear. So I got counseling for that actually well into my 50s birthday, when I was already 50 years old. Very, very emotional. So
Oh
those
man.
are, yeah.
Okay, John. Now you've made me understand something about war. To some people, they actually think um, war could be a solution to whatever problem it is they felt like is going on. But I believe that if there is anyone with that kind of mentality listening to this podcast, he or she is going to have a change of mind because your words are so filled with amazing insight, and I love it. Okay, John, shall we get started with the questions?
Sure.
All right, beautiful. So, talk to us. Were you once into bodybuilding and fitness, or are you still into it? Can you talk to us about that journey?
Oh my goodness, Alicia. So I was one of those individuals, as a lot of us are, right? That, every December 31st, New Year's Eve, and we sit there and saying, okay, so I'm going to do in the new year, these are the commitments I'm making. This one, that one, and this one. And then I'm going to go to the gym and get exercise. So I was one of those. And then I buy a membership, I do it for 2 weeks, and then I can find 100 reasons as why I'm too busy. I can't go anymore until the following year. So it always takes a shock of some sort or another. And that happened to me in 2008. I got a case of diverticulitis. And for those of you that may not know what diverticulitis is, that if you have pain on the right side of your body, is saying, it could be your appendix. If it is on the left side, it's your colon area potentially, and saying it could well be diverticulitis. The doc then, I'm not a doc, I give medical advice, obviously, but then just saying, but they usually say then is have more vegetables and avoid this, that, and the other thing, and then it should go away. In some cases, though, there is a breach and it breaks or it ruptures. And so that's what it did in my case. And so where the colon ruptured and all the toxins go into your abdomen, and then if you don't deal with it in 48 hours, then it becomes very, very serious because it starts attacking the other healthy components. I have a fairly high threshold for pain. That's not necessarily good. And so I made my way back here on a flight and virtually had a difficult time even getting to the gate. I was hanging on to the side, and I thought, oh, if I go on my knees, somebody will call 911, and I have to get back to the town where I am in Prince George, the center of British Columbia. And so when I arrived there, went to my doc's office and said, oh, what are you doing? You go to the hospital right away. So that's what I did. Then I got an operation that same day, and the doc said, you came this close. And so that was kind of a warning, and it got my attention. And so I did two things. I'm very fortunate. My wife, Sharon, she is a vegan, always preaches to me in a way, not preaches, but trying to keep me healthy. And, and I listened somewhat, but not quite as good as I should have sometimes, and most of the times. And, so I started to look closer at my diet. And so today probably I'm what I would call 80-20 vegan, 80% of the time, and then 20%, maybe even closer to 10. But in any event, the other part is that I felt I had to go in a serious way, work on my health and fitness. And so I hired a trainer. And so in 2009, and started working out in a very serious way. And so then after doing that for about 6 years, 7 years, I still remember the day somebody came up to us, my trainer, myself, and he said, hey, John, have you ever thought about competing? I said, who, me? So so then I thought, maybe that's a challenge for me that will work. So I started working even harder, and then competed in 2017 first on a regional competition. Amazingly, I came in second in bodybuilding, third in physique. That qualified me for the provincials. Came in third in physique, second in bodybuilding. That qualified me for the nationals and for the Arnolds. And then COVID came, and so that kind of set me back a bit, but I still kept in shape. And like today, I'm still competing. Actually, after this podcast, I'm going to the gym, and I do that all the time now. I work out between 5 and 10 hours a week, depending on how close I am to competition, and and I like it. And so that's what I'm doing. And in fact, it has now become part of my life, and I'm in the process of writing a book about it. Actually, staying in shape, and I call it Living Young, Dying Old. And here, can you see it?
Yeah, sure, I can. Oh, that is you, right?
That is
Whoa.
So I'm getting ready for competing again nationally and at the Arnold's in 2025. And I've already talked to Arnold, and he said, okay, he's gonna take pictures with me and and kind of flex muscles and work out a little bit. So
Wow.
the book will come out in, I believe it is August, and
Okay.
it is not, it's not about the age, but how old are you, but it's more the quality of life that is
Mm.
important. And so I'm very conscientious about my food, what I eat, and then staying fit both mentally, physically, is very, very important to me.
Important.
And I'm
40.
nearly
Wow.
84.
Whoa, that's amazing, man. Oh my
I'm
goodness.
the oldest competitive bodybuilder in North America.
Wow. I was about to ask that. Wow. So talk to me, John. How do you feel? How do you feel about it, being the oldest? How do you feel about
I love it. So that makes me feel good. Like in November, obviously, I'm going to be 84, so I'm 83 and a half. So I feel good about it. So I get up still early in the morning, and usually at 5:30. I always make my bed, and I'm also always very excited about the day, all the things that happen. I have a busy life. I've written 4 books. The last one is this one here.
it?
I'm working
Yeah.
on my 5th one, and I'm also a very active podcaster. I'm a very active speaker, doing keynotes quite a bit, and then I have about 10 different companies that I manage. So, and people say to me, "How do you do it?" Well, the other thing, this is a bit of a shocker, is that I say the reason that I do it, and a little bit of a story behind it is I was not overly successful academically. In Holland, I failed grade 3, and who fails grade 3, honestly, really? And then I failed grade 7 3 times. And then they said, oh, maybe you should send this guy to the mentally challenged school. Fortunately, my parents, beautiful people, they said, no, we're not going to do that. So let's get him build a career, get a profession. So they sent me to a furniture factory. I love lumber. My grandfather was a master carpenter. My dad managed a small lumber company. So that's what I did. At 13, I went to a furniture factory, and then in the evening to school, and I became a furniture maker. And then, but it always was kind of troubled by, a lot of my friends in grade 7 went on to college and then university, and kids among young people among each other are sometimes hard on each other, so that were friends of mine before, all of a sudden I was a laborer. I'm proud of that today, but then that was kind of looked down on. And I kind of felt that my dream from the war years was to go to the lands of my heroes, Canada, and then I wanted to build my own lumber mill, and so the timber is in British Columbia, and so that was my second dream, and the third one was that I was going to prove to myself that I was just as smart as the other people, not smarter than, but at least as smart, and so it took me until I was 57 years old that I walked into a store here in the town that I live, Central British Columbia. And I picked up a book, and the book's title was Driven to Distraction. And it was written by Dr. Halliwell. And it was about, of all things, ADHD. And I said, oh my God, that's me. And I wrote in the book, now I finally know who I am. And that kind of explained why I was not very good in school. And I didn't pay any attention. I may as well not have been there. And so and the more I found out about ADHD, the more I found it became clearer to me that it was still had a lot of stigma attached, not as much now, but still some, and that probably 8% of the population have or are benefiting from ADHD. I thought from my Googling. It took me 5 years, Alicia, until I went to my doc that delivered our 2 daughters and my personal friend, and I walked into his office when I was 62, and he said, "Hey, John, why are you here?" I said, I think I got ADHD. And so we looked at it. Yes, I do. And so then the more I thought about it and the more I started speaking about it, including in my presentation, I felt I had to write a book about it. So I did. ADHD Unlocked is a book that I wrote, quite popular, actually. And, so, and then in my discussion, I did a podcast with Dr. Halliwell. Can you believe it? That wrote that book again, Driven to Distraction. He wrote it in 1993. I bought the book in 1997. I still have it today, and I had the opportunity. Dr. Halliwell, very well known, wrote about 18 books, 5 in the distraction ones. I podcasted him a couple of weeks ago. It's my podcast, On the Brink, 2003, by John A. Brink, and a very interesting podcast about it. So we talked about it, and I said that by then I had concluded in my mind, and I said that to Dr. Halliwell, that probably 20% of the population have ADHD. He said, no, John, probably 25%. And I said, I agree. The other part that I said to him, at least in my opinion, that I believe most of the successful entrepreneurs or CEOs, and the successful is the operative here, is that at least 50% of them, I said, have ADHD. He said, no, John, probably more than 75%. I agree with them. So, so I've been, his books are very interesting. And so what I'm saying is to most people is that this book, and Dr. Halliwell's as well, is not only for those that have or believe they have or benefiting from ADHD. I call it a superpower. And coming back to saying, okay, you do all this stuff, Jen. How do you do it all? I said ADHD. That's how I can do it. And so, but I think the book is not only for those that have ADHD, but also people that are affected by trauma or other issues. And then the other part is that for anybody virtually, no matter where and no matter what, male, female, is that it is virtually impossible to avoid it. You will encounter people with ADHD, either in your family, in your friends, or in your workplace, or in life in general. And the better you understand them, they tend to be somewhat different, but very interestingly, high energy and those kind of things. The typical examples of ADHD. I say it's a superpower. So, for me, what is important to remove the myth and the liability side of ADHD. I say it is a benefit.
Beautiful. Okay, Jan. In conclusion, let's say there is one piece of advice you'd like to give to the audience. What would that be? And let's say there are someone's listening who would like to get your book on ADHD and the one that you're yet to release, the ones you've released, and all that, and learn more about you. How can that be possible?
Okay, so the books are available on all the major areas, Amazon and on and on and on. And johnabrink.com will guide you to that, same as my podcast. And, yeah. So that's, what was the other question, Alicia?
One piece of advice you'd like to give to the audience.
I would say a number of things are important, is that, especially for young people that are considering what to do in life and where to go from here on in. And I wrote another book about that. There are so many people that don't like their jobs and they hate their jobs. And I heard on one of the major media saying, in the U.S. media, is actually that 70% of the people do not like their jobs. That's troubling. And 75% of them are looking for another job. And what I find a lot of times with young people in particular is that I do a lot of presenting, and what I'm hearing then is that if I tell them respectfully, so after you're done in your schooling, what kind of a job you're thinking about? And you say, I don't know. And I said, well, start looking around and say you want to be a carpenter. find out what they are doing. You want to be a contractor, talk to contractors so you have an idea what lifestyle do they have, what do they do. You want to be a lawyer, talk to lawyers. A lot of people like to talk to people, and young people in particular, that are searching for career opportunities, and or even an entrepreneur. Think about where do you want to do, but how to go about it. So I wrote a book about that part, is finding your passion, living the dream. And so and a fair question would be, say, hey, John, are you living the dream? I say, absolutely. Still, even at nearly 84, I'm still living the dream. So the advice that I would give most people is that be at peace, especially young people, be at peace as who you are. You are special, every single one of you, because there's only one of you. And then give back to the community, understand others, be respectful, work hard, give it everything that you got, and then then things will fall in place for you. And my foundation is attitude. I avoid the negative. Passion. Whatever I do, I give it 150%. And work ethic. I work harder than anybody. And that to me is my foundation.
Beautiful, beautiful, John. It has been an amazing moment with you on the show. I must confess, and I would love to have you on the show again and again and again, if that would be possible. If that would be possible.
Absolutely. We'll stay in
Beautiful.
touch.
Yeah, all right, sure, do that. So that's going to be the end of the show, John. Thank you for your time. Thank you for honoring the invite, and thank you for coming. It means a whole lot. Thank you.
Thanks, Alicia. My pleasure. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to this incredible episode. Your support means the world to us, and we truly value you. We look forward to having you join us for the next episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider rating and reviewing us on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback is greatly appreciated.